Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Q&A with Dr. J. This is a special series on heart health because February is Heart Month, and lots of people have heart disease, and many people die from heart disease, and we don't want that to happen. It's still the number one killer of women and men in this country, and that's just sad. So Dr. J wants to give you a bigger picture about how your genes relate to your heart health in different categories. And this first one that we're doing is just about genes and heart health in general. Dr. J, I have heard that heart disease runs in families. So I'm wondering how much of heart health is actually controlled by genes versus lifestyle?
Wow, that's a really good question for several reasons. One is people are terrified to look at their genetic report because they think it's written in stone that they're going to have heart disease if their parents had it or grandparents. But it's about 20 to 50% of heart disease is flavored, if you will, or the risk factors are flavored by genetics. And so the rest is diet, lifestyle, and supplementation as well. Yeah, there's a big place there for being proactive and understanding your risk and looking at your genes and then working with the suggestions on that.
Can we get a little bit sciencey and talk about specific genes? Because some people will not have had their genes tested yet, so I'm going to encourage them to get a My Happy Genes test, but some will have test results, and it might be helpful for them to know which ones to look at.
Yeah, there are different categories, as we have discussed. Is it blood pressure that we're looking at? Is it high cholesterol? Is it hardening of the arteries? Or sorry, arteriosclerosis is hardening of the arteries, and atherosclerosis is where the buildup of plaquing in the arteries. Stroke risk as well is in that category. Which one do you want to start with?
Is there a generic, my heart is going to be healthy for the rest of my life gene? Or are they really, you have to look at specifics? And we can get into specifics as we go along through this series.
Yeah, it's funny because the majority of the time it's not the heart that's the problem. It's actually the vasculature. When we look at the heart itself, it's a very fairly low percentage of issues that will take you out, but it's the blood flow to the heart that often is the culprit. Vascular health is a much more important topic to look at. And there are several genes that are very much involved in vascular health. And one is my favorite is that vitamin D receptor. And we've seen that increasing vitamin K2, which is associated with how that vitamin D receptor is functioning, actually pulls the calcium out of your arteries and puts it into the bones. So in one swell swoop, you reduce your risk of not only cardiovascular disease, but also bone density issues, osteoporosis and osteopenia.
That's interesting because there is a debate that many of our listeners will have heard about whether you should take calcium supplements for your bones at the risk of having calcification in your arteries. And I don't know whether they're related, but it sounds like what you said they are. There is some relationship there.
Yeah, very much. A lot of people are taking vitamin D and calcium together, thinking that's a good recipe for getting their bones built up, but you're actually increasing your risk of cardiovascular and heart disease when you do that. Without K2 in there to tell the body where to put that
Hmm.
calcium could actually sit in your arteries and in your joints instead of going to the bones where they should be. So we have to look at the whole picture. The K and the A and the D are critical for making sure that calcium goes in the right direction, goes into the bone and not into the arteries and joints and kidneys.
And then there's the whole question about the quality of the supplement, but that's another conversation for
Yeah.
another time. All
Yeah.
supplements are definitely not created equal. Let's just say I find out that I have a genetic risk for a heart disease, or I don't have a good VDR, vitamin D receptor. Am I stuck with those genes? Something I can do to change them?
You're not going to change the genes.
Okay.
Put that in a different way. You're going to change the way the genes express, or actually more accurately, you're going to change the way the enzymes that gene codes for can express. You're going to change the conformation of those enzymes so that they work better. So there's a lot you can do with diet and lifestyle and targeted nutrients that kind of make up for your genetic risk that you may have inherited. So
Mhm.
it's exciting that we can do so much to prevent these things from happening, even though you've been born with certain genes that'll give you a higher risk. And that's one reason, again, for getting your genes tested to look at, do I have that risk and do I need to be proactive with it?
Once again, knowledge is part of the equation when it comes to making changes in our lifestyle. The other is someone to guide us once we get the knowledge, the information from a genetic report.
Yeah.
You leave it to me, and I'm going to panic and freak out and look at the thing and say, woe is me, this is the end. But when I spoke to you, because I chose you to be my practitioner to read the reports, I realized basically what you're saying. I didn't have to worry about the couple of risk factors that I have if I was willing to take steps to help those genes express in a better way. So people, you know what I'm going to say next. Get your genes tested, and I would prefer you did it with My Happy Genes so that you can have a practitioner who is trained and understands our reporting system. And we're going to show you some of the reports in the next video. So make sure you come back here to YouTube or open up your email, because we're going to cover 3 more aspects of genetics and heart disease.
Okay, yeah. So we're gonna talk more about not the vasculature as well as the cholesterol levels and looking at risk of stroke, et cetera. So yeah, do join us.
And tell your friends.